The query string pretty much tells you, this is where I want to go. It begins with a question mark. It's used to pass data to the server. Multiple key values are separated by ampersand. My apologies, ampersand. And in this case, it just tells the server where to redirect to. So in this example, as you can see, it says redirect to dashboard and ID equals 42. So the ID would probably be the user ID and so forth. And then the fragment, which I talked about, just refers you to a specific part of the page, like an anchor or a section and so forth. Cool. Perfect. How does HTTP work in terms of like flow of traffic, right? I always actually ask this question. It's one of my favorite questions to ask in an interview. And people would say, come on, that's sort of basic question to ask people. But I'm like, hey, like, I want to know. As a security folks, we could literally unpack this question and go levels and levels of depth and width and breadth and all of that stuff. So I enjoy actually asking this question because it opens like the can of worms, and then we just can kind of get in deeper and so forth. Now that said, let me just kind of cover it high level. As I said, we can dig down deeper into it as much as we want, but I'm going to cover it high level. And pretty much what happens when you type a web address in your browser? Well, imagine that you're the user. You typically would say, hey, I want to go to www.example.com. You type that in your browser. The first thing that happens is something you should know, which is most web browsers understand these human readable forms like www.example.com. But in reality, it needs to actually map that address to something which is more an IP address on some server. And what happens here is that this uses, what we call a DNS server. So once you type in your web address, you go into your browser, it actually sends a thing to your DNS server and says, hey, I'm looking for example.com. What is the actual address? So think of it as like the actual mapping of, URLs, human readable versions to numbers that nobody probably will remember, if anything. So hence why, this is that. So this is just more of a user-friendly way. And then what it does, it calls your DNS server and it says, hey, give me the IP address for example.com. The DNS server returns that IP address. And then what it does is it then in turn send what we call an HTTP request to that web server address, which is the IP address that the DNS server sent to you. And then if that page exists or if that site exists, it responds typically with a simple, hey, this is okay, this is what you requested, blah, blah, blah.